It's time to make sports talk great again with Curt Schilling and Steve Deace.
And greetings. Welcome to Blaze Media. Whether you are watching us today on the Blaze YouTube or listening to the podcast, thank you for tuning in. I am Steve Deace. He is World Series champion, future Hall of Famer Curt Schilling, and each and every day we do our best in the span of 25 minutes to talk sports. Curt, are you ready to go?
Ready to go.
Today will also be a glorious day, a little tease. Curt will be admitting something that he frankly needs to admit far more often. But it's coming on this show, coming up, starting right now. But you know what? I am. Let it not be said that I am not magnanimous. You know, I am not a selfish lover. So I am going to begin with a topic right in your wheelhouse. You know, just because. I believe mercy triumphs over judgment. So let's start with Major League Baseball, Curt. Some various reports from respected insiders yesterday about the man here, Bryce Harper, who every other era of a Major League Baseball free agency would have probably signed by Thanksgiving. But, of course, pitchers and catchers are reporting as we speak, and he, along with over 100 other free agents, remains unsigned. So we had conflicting reports yesterday that he was on the brink of a deal with the San Francisco Giants, and then other reports saying that he is seriously considering signing with the Phillies. So, A, do you believe it's down to these two teams? And
yes.
Then B, okay, yes, if it is, and you were advising him, what would you tell him?
I would tell him to unplug for a day from all of it and sit down with the people that matter most to him and figure out what he wants. This is not going to be. It is going to be about the money to some degree, but if you're representing this guy, you want this guy to be playing baseball in October. Mm-hmm. And to do that, I think both of these teams offer potential for that. I think Philadelphia offers bigger potential right now, but you can't dismiss Bruce Bochy and what he's been able to do down in San Francisco. It's really comes. This is the part where I think the world outside of professional athletes and families doesn't understand the decision's going to be made. He's not going to make the final decision. He's going to make the final decision based on what his wife wants and what he and his wife together feel is best for them. And a lot of times that has to do with all the little things that you may or may not talk about, from the clubhouse facilities to the family room to the willingness of the team to include families. And some teams don't. Some teams don't want families, kids at the ballpark and all the other stuff. They want business. Other teams, they know that that's a huge deal for some people, and players talk. Wives talk just as much, if not more, during the game. And those little things end up being the reason why a guy like this chooses. There's not going to be as big of a financial difference. The two comparable deals means after taxes, he'd make more money in Philadelphia. And you're not talking about minuscule amounts either. But I don't know if something like that factors into what he's thinking. But this is, I'm with you. The source I heard yesterday made me believe that the San Francisco deal was done, because the guy that tweets about stuff like that generally has pretty solid people informing him. That it didn't happen tells me that somebody jumped the gun. But yeah, I think you're looking at these two teams, and if I got to tell you, as a player, I can't fathom playing anywhere with more passionate fans than Philadelphia. But if you're going to go to the West Coast, the one team to play on the West Coast, play for, that is like playing for an East Coast team is San Francisco. Their fans are dedicated, passionate, hardcore, smart. It's just, I think it's quite literally a crappy city to live in. Mm-hmm.
The city is a dump, by the way. Yeah. But, here's the thing. Surrounding the city is a lot of great places to live and
damn expensive.
Enjoy life. Yeah, but here's the thing. Pennsylvania ain't exactly Texas and Florida when it comes to taxes, but it ain't California either. Okay, so when you line these things up, I think you are, and of course you know what you're talking about because you've been this prized free agent, so you understand those intangibles. And just to reinforce your case, when you look at these two teams and what they're offering culturally, they really are the embodiment of the fulfillment of the two options a man like this faces. On the one hand, with Philadelphia, you're betting on the come that they're the next Braves, they're the next Royals, they're that next team, the next Astros, and you're the guy that puts them over the top, right? Okay.
You can see an October appearance,
right?
And it's a realistic frame of mind.
And it's a division you obviously know very well as being a part of the Washington Nationals. So you already know this division. Your family's comfortable with the road trips and things of that nature, most of them, because you play 19 games against all those other teams, and you're going to play almost a dozen games in a ballpark that you're pretty familiar with there in Washington D.C. So there's that aspect. But then the Giants kind of have the makeup, minus a player like him. But they kind of have the makeup of a lot of the teams they've won World Series with. Guys that, we kind of thought maybe this guy was kind of washed. Pablo Sandoval's not any good anymore. Or this guy, Madison Bumgarner, kind of comes out of nowhere. And Bruce Bochy puts that kind of a team together. It's in a division where when you and I previewed these divisions for spring training last week, we kind of just went with the Dodgers and Rockies by default while not thinking either one of those teams was a threat to actually win a World Series. So he could be the final piece there for a more veteran team, veteran manager, a veteran culture. It's a better place to live in terms of weather, climate, year-round, but it's culturally totally different from the situation that he comes from.
And he grew up in Vegas.
And that's it. So it's a closer flight from Frisco to Vegas. That's for sure.
Let me just say the other X factor here is he had in-person meetings with both these clubs. And I'm not sure I can push the degree of importance that those things are.
Why? What goes on inside those meetings?
You get to sit down with the manager who you don't know, and the first impression is everything. And so the question is, and knowing Gabe Kapler, Gabe's a little different. He's a kind of a new manager. He's got a very different approach. And it can be different for some people sometimes, just because he's so open, so forthright. So he's always smiling. It's Gabe. But I would argue that if you're looking at two managers to sit down in front of, if you were a betting man, and you had to bet between Gabe Kapler and Bruce Bochy based on track record so far, which Gabe doesn't have a long one, who would you bet had left a better first impression? Who's been at this, long? You know what I'm saying? And I would imagine that Bruce Bochy probably, for no fault of Gabe's, but the fact is Bruce has been around the block, and every year you mentioned when we talked about the American League or National League West. Isn't that what happened every year they win the World Series? It's a year when no one talks about them.
Exactly. The division looks like this, and their team almost always looks like this.
For you futures bettors out there, remember that.
All right, let's get to anything else. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to have one more thing.
Yep.
Don't be surprised if an 11th hour team shows up and offers a 4 to 6 year deal at $40 million a year, and that would be the St. Louis Cardinals.
Wow. That's a lot of scratch for a franchise like that, especially if you are talking about you think they're going to lock up Goldschmidt for the long term because he's going into his contract
year. They have money. But do you go 5 years and $180 million or 5 years, $190 million as opposed to 10 years, $300?
Right.
I mean, you're pretty comfortable getting 5 years out of Bryce Harper. Not comfortable getting 10 out of anybody.
Anything else before we move on to a necessary reckoning? No? Then move on we shall.
All right.
You know what? I don't want to say it. I'm going to let you say it.
I'm opening the segment.
Yeah, it's all yours. It's all yours.
Yep. So I'm just going to open it. I would like to go on record, and it pains me to do this, to say that early in our relationship, you made mention of something that I poo-pooed. As an athlete, as a potential, I don't think I'm as much a get off my lawn guy as you think, but okay, I'll acquiesce to that. You had been mentioning.
That's exactly what a get off my lawn guy would say, by the way. But go ahead.
Born and raised a Steeler fan, you had the audacity to bring to the table that my Steelers would suffer from the Madden curse because Antonio Brown was on the cover. When in fact, my Steelers suffered from the Madden curse because Antonio Brown was on the cover. There, you were right. I was wrong. Next subject.
You know what? I was thinking about this driving in.
Let me just throw this on you. As a football fan, seriously, I'm not. What the hell is he thinking?
Well, we'll get to that in a second. It is beyond surreal to me. I remember so vividly the bloody sock game. And I remember calling to my wife and saying, honey, you've got to come in and watch this. This is like the scene in The Natural when Roy Hobbs starts bleeding through the shirt. All right. This is like real life. You cannot, this is incredible theater. And I mean, this is one of the most unreal things I've ever seen in sports. And now to be sitting here, what are we, 15 years later? Or about it, to be sitting here 15 years later just goes, where else? I was listening yesterday to a classic rock station on Sirius XM, and Joe Walsh comes on. It was on the Beatles channel. And Joe Walsh comes on about how his old man bought him tickets to see the Beatles at their last concert at Shea in 1966 when he was 18. And he didn't know this, but the woman that was going to go on to be his wife was 50 feet away from him at the same concert with her sister. And what ended up happening is Joe Walsh grew up, of course, to be the lead guitarist for the Eagles and have a great solo career on his own. He ends up marrying that woman that was at the same concert, becomes good friends with Ringo Starr from the Beatles, who married her sister. All right. And these people are all within 100 feet of each other at Shea Stadium this day in 1966. And they had no idea how their lives were going to be forever intertwined going into the future. Right. And I feel that way right now. I'm like, this is incredible. And now the man that scaled these heights, that accomplished this feat, thou dost prepare a place for me in the presence of my enemies. He now comes to me and says, your intellect, your ability to analyze is just incredibly impressive. And this is a life moment for me right now. I want America to know this.
I need people to understand how hard it is to do this show every day. I think I put a good face on it for almost a year, and I can no longer do that. There are days when
awful announcing headline: Curt Schilling admits career's hit rock bottom. Yes, there it is.
Oh man, and I was gonna say so. I was very, very deep into the gaming industry for a period of years. I got to know some amazingly great people. Peter Moore, who ran EA Sports, St. John Bain, a lot of other people at EA that were just phenomenal human beings. And I can tell you that it's not a little thing at EA.
When I introduced this to you last summer, I gave you a decade plus worth of examples of this. But
this is going from, and they literally used to have NFL players and agents.
Don't put me on the cover.
Around the clock, begging to be the cover of Madden because they all played. And that was one of the differences you'll find in professional sports is you go into an NFL locker room, most of the guys will be playing Madden. You'll never catch guys in baseball locker rooms playing baseball games. I always said, listen, when they can make a baseball game as hard as the real thing, then I'll play it. Until then, no. But these guys play. Madden is embedded in that culture in the NFL.
Those guys will complain about their ratings during training camp when the game comes out in August.
A lot of them will.
So here's what happened to your Steelers. This is a franchise. They don't win this thing every year, okay? But they never, ever, and I mean ever, even when they suck, I can't remember in my lifetime a season where they became the New York Mets. The drama that we saw with this team this year. Antonio Brown gets thrown out of practice after a fight with Ben Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger calling out receivers by name for not running their routes. All of the other issues that went on. He then demands this was like since the day Chuck Noll walked through Steeler headquarters for the first time. This is like 50 years of drama the Steelers have escaped, and it all hit them in one seat. We didn't get Le'Veon Bell's holdout and everything with that, and he was going to report, then he doesn't report. It's unbelievable what happened to that franchise this year, and you know what? It just so happened to happen. All of this poo hits the fan the year that he's on the cover. Respect.
Damn you. But I will tell you that this was Franco Harris and Lynn Swann and Terry Bradshaw acting out. That would have never happened. And I'll tell you what it does tell me as a Steeler fan. It tells me that the coach of this team has absolutely no control. None.
Here's why that's a key. Because Mike Tomlin's not an analytic guy. He's not a coordinator guy. He's not a Sean McVay data guy. Okay. Or is it Mike Lynn, the new guy with the Chargers? Okay. He's not in that group at all. He is an old school players coach. Guys are inspired. They play for me. They play hard for me. And so the fact that cohesiveness, that chemistry came apart, maybe more than any other coach in this league, is that's kind of a reflection, I think, on him.
Well, and let me just tell you as a Steeler fan, when people talk about intangibles, this is exactly why Troy Polamalu and James Harrison were worth the money they were worth, in addition to being phenomenal team players on the field. This didn't happen in their clubhouse. This never happened in their clubhouse because they didn't allow it to happen. That's the other piece. Not only is Tomlin lost the clubhouse, there is not a leader in this group. Ben Roethlisberger doesn't lead this team, because if he did, none of this would happen. He was part of the problem.
When you've been a veteran guy and a big name at the end of a career, okay? We've gone through, it hasn't come up yet this offseason, but the previous 2 offseasons it did come up. Is Roethlisberger going to come back? Is he going to retire?
Right.
Does that lower, and I don't know, I'm asking, when guys, because it's a little bit like, a lame duck thing in the political world, the other area that you and I cover, right? Can you be a lame duck as a team leader? Can you lose control of a team if guys think that you might be out the door at any point?
Here's the thing. Speaking from my experiences, what I believe, you're a leader until you retire.
Okay.
It's not something. I don't know how to put it. It's not something that transfers. It's not you. I'll give you a great example. Right here in Boston, you had David Ortiz. Well, you had a group of people that were leading. Then I think after the group of people that I was with retired, David became kind of the leader. And David wasn't a vocal guy for the most part in the clubhouse. But that was the question people had coming into this year and the last couple seasons was, with all these young players, who was the leader? Well, they said, Dustin Pedroia, because he'd played. But Dustin wasn't the guy who talked up in the clubhouse a lot, but he was put into that role. Leaders are leaders. It doesn't matter what their role in the team is. And whether he was coming or going had nothing to do. If Ben Roethlisberger led this team, then he would have led it no matter what, and that's not the case.
I'll be fascinated to see what he gets on the market. You know what I think of Le'Veon Bell? No way I'd pay him $16, $20 million. Right. I would literally pay no running back that. Saquon Barkley, no running back would I pay that. None. And I wouldn't pay a 31-year-old wide receiver the kind of money that he's asking for either. He has still been incredibly productive, but there's a prima donna aspect that goes along with this. I saw Vegas has your Arizona Cardinals as the number 1 odds place for a destiny. No, with Josh Rosen's personality there. Oh my goodness. No, see, here's the thing. With Antonio Brown is kind of a smaller, less loquacious version of Terrell Owens. And you can't put him with a young quarterback who he'll run him over and run the team over. You've got to put him with a veteran quarterback who can tell him, no, you weren't open, shut your hole. Okay? That's what I think you need to do.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, is he really a kind of a Keyshawn Johnson, give me the damn ball guy?
He has become that the last couple of years.
Okay.
And you know what's happened? I think it's because of Juju Smith-Schuster. I think this is the first time in his career that there has been a clear number 2 that was a guy that on his own can make big plays and carry a team. And I think that's kind of impacted him a little bit. And I think the emergence with Smith-Schuster coincides with him running his mouth more.
The selfishness of this generation, this in a sense, this is kind of Shaq and Kobe again. They can't open their eyes long enough to see how good they have it. Antonio Brown does nothing but benefit from Juju being in the lineup with him.
And sometimes let's be careful painting with a broad brush. You're usually right, but Juju Smith-Schuster here, the young guy, he's the guy that when he was asked about Antonio Brown last week, he was the guy that said, "Hey, we want to have him back, we love him, but this team's got to stop being the Kardashians and just shut up and play football." All right,
right.
He's the adult in the room right now.
That's exactly right. But. And you finding that out now means he found that out a long time ago. Antonio Brown clearly had personality conflicts with Juju because he is the mature. Juju that's the dream for a coach to have a young player like that in the NFL. They're so few and far between. But again, Antonio Brown not recognizing how good he had it It's that saying, you know what, the grass is always greener, and most times it's not.
I hate to say it. You know who he's perfect for? The right in your backyard.
Patriots?
Oh my goodness. He's the player they missed this year.
Right.
With Brandon Cooks gone, they went off to the Rams.
Yeah.
He is. What's the one thing that they don't have offensively? The guy that takes the top off of defense. And what's the thing that he has shown? He has shown. 2007 Randy Moss. Is that what you're going to say?
That's exactly. He's a 2021 Randy Moss to Tom Brady. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And the way they manage their cap, they could fit him in there. And with Belichick and his MO, just shut up and do your job. And with the quarterback there in Tom Brady, they will cut him on a Friday in October if he runs his mouth. They don't care.
Yeah,
right?
Which is why I don't think it's going to happen, because I think that they're going to have. I think the Steelers get a first for this.
I don't think they'll get a first for a 31-year-old receiver.
Let me tell you something. Somebody's going to give him a first.
If someone gives him a first, let me tell you who it is. It's your buddy John Gruden in Oakland with 3 first-round picks. That's the only team that will give him a first-round pick, I think.
I could see that.
I could see Gruden doing that. Yeah.
I could see him too, but somebody's giving him a first. I would argue, I don't care if it's the Raiders or not. Somebody's giving them a first for this pick, or they're getting a starting 11 guy on one side of the ball and a second.
You ever notice with these wide receivers too? I mean, with the exception of an OBJ who played at LSU, a lot of these guys that run their mouths, Chad Ochocinco, Oregon State, Terrell Owens, some nowhere school, Antonio Brown, Central Michigan. You're like,
Moss
dude,
Marshall?
you didn't play at Notre Dame. You didn't play at Florida State. You didn't play at Alabama. I mean, Julio Jones plays at Alabama. You never hear a peep. Nothing. Just puts up 100 catches a year.
Played at Marshall.
Yeah. So I don't understand where these guys who come from nowhere schools and come into the NFL and have some success, and you would think they'd be able to handle it. Like, you would think Juju Smith-Schuster, the 5-star recruit, went to USC. You'd think he's the guy that couldn't handle the pro experience and it would get to his ego, not the guy from Central Michigan who was a draft afterthought. You'd think he'd be more mature and handle it better, but here we are.
And just to any liberals might be watching this show, we're not calling Juju that's his name.
That's his name. Juju Smith-Schuster is his name. Yes.
Somebody's going to.
Well, right now he's some good Juju right now.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's go. We talked yesterday about the second chance forgiveness angle. Let's get to this really quick. Art Briles, who presided over. We don't really still know for sure. We know that a bunch of guys were kept on the team despite assaulting women. We know that ultimately, as the head coach, he's responsible. We are told from a summary report that we didn't get any specifics. There are incredibly damning text messages and emails where he acknowledges he knows what's going on and tries to even alter the outcomes.
Happened. He did it.
Yes, but here's the other thing, too. They gave him $15 million. They didn't fire him with cause. They gave him a $15 million buyout to go away. Well, Jay Hobson at Southern Miss, without permission from his administration, so that's probably mistake number one, interviewed Art Briles about 2 weeks ago for the offensive coordinator job there. And the media went nuts, probably rightfully so in this case. The administration, the school president stepped in and said, no, we're not doing that. Yeah. Jay Hobson, the football coach, puts out a statement. His wife puts out a statement, about grace, second chances, quoting Bible verses and things of that nature. And the administration says, no, we don't need to go there. We don't need the controversy. Is it different rehabilitating a disgraced coach who's 60 and should maybe know better than a 23-year-old player like Kareem Hunt?
I got 6 words as my initial response. What the hell was he thinking? I mean, is this not front and center for the social justice warriors and everybody else in the world right now? They're looking for somebody to scream at. And the other thing is, I probably will never coach again, or be able to coach if I have to go to my administration to hire my staff. Right. That's the
first thing I thought about with Jay Hobson. Is it sounds to me like he doesn't want to coach at Southern Miss anymore. Is kind of what I thought.
And that's right. And that's a program that I always looked at that was always on the cusp. They've
had a lot of good, they've been one of the, going back to when Pat Dye was there in the 70s, they've been like kind of, they're kind of Boise State before Boise State, if you will. Yeah.
And I've always looked at them as kind of, again, they're a 15th ranked kind of a institution.
Yeah.
with a recruit or two away from being fifth. Why would you do something like this?
Why do you care more about rehabilitating Art Briles than you do your own job? That would be the key. I mean, if I were Jay Hobson's wife, that's what I'd be asking him. Because we get fired at Southern Miss, we're not getting a $15 million buyout here, right? Why do you care more about? By the way, let's say the administration says, yeah, you can put him on the team, and you guys weren't that good last year, and he coordinates the offense, and it's great. You know what they're going to do to you? They're going to can you and make him the head coach. This is a lose-lose proposition. I wasn't sure how Jay Hobson thought this was a win for him on any front, because if you rehabilitate him, they'll get rid of him and make you.
Was he thinking?
Yes.
What the hell? What?
All right, quickly, John Elway, Flacco for Case Keenum. Aaron, can we throw this graphic up really quick? We've got 10 seconds here. Looking at this graphic, for those of you in our audience that can't see it, this is basically a statistical comparison the last 2 years between Case Keenum and Joe Flacco, and you're going to see that Case Keenum's the better quarterback pretty much comprehensively across the board. The Broncos are going with Flacco. They're trying to now trade away Case Keenum. Straight up, would you trade Joe Flacco for Case Keenum?
Which side am I on?
Would you rather have Case Keenum or Joe Flacco as your quarterback?
No. If I'm Denver, no. The only thing I have in Joe Flacco, and I'm not sure what it's worth because I never played football at that level, is the ability to get to a Super Bowl and help a team win a Super Bowl. There's something valuable about that. I don't know what that is, but no. I don't think that was I don't know. I that was a confusing deal. But I got to tell you, I can't believe Baltimore's going to put all their eggs in that basket this quickly. For a guy who, I'm glad he had success, but I don't know that's. I don't know if Jackson is the answer.
Well, you know what? Here's the good news. We're going to find out now. Yeah. He is the quarterback of the Ravens. It is his franchise, the former Heisman Trophy winner, no doubt about it.
Tomorrow I want to finish. I think it's appropriate. We finish. I want to talk about, you mentioned this in our Major League Baseball finances, arbitration, the free agent market. There's a big discussion to be had here coming into spring training and then going out.
We're going to lead off with this topic tomorrow. Fantastic analysis from CBS Sports, looking at using a metric to look at what players may truly be worth to a particular franchise. Yes. And I found this to be fascinating.
My take on this.
All right, we're going to do that because you're also a former player rep. We'll do that here tomorrow on The Blaze.
Take care, buddy.
Take care.